If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy. Download and subscribe at BeBullish.com. The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Good morning, folks. Good afternoon, folks. This is Steve Moore. Thanks for joining the More Money Show. And so pleased that we have so many people around the country listening. Every week we pick up new affiliates. We're all the way west to Los Angeles. We have affiliates in Kansas City, in Chicago, up in Maine, in Georgia, in the Carolinas, and Indianapolis. So we pick up more and more stations because you all listen to the show. We get great ratings. And so thank you for making the More Money Show a success. I always say that I am not the smartest or the brightest or the best radio talk show host by a long shot, but I do have the smartest audience, and I'm proud of being able to talk to you every Saturday afternoon from 1 to 3 p.m. I know some of you are in cities where you get it at different times, but thank you for joining. Boy, is there a lot to talk about this week, and as we move into the middle of November. A few things I want to make sure that people understand very clearly. The whole issue that's been cropping up in the last week or two has been this new word, affordability, and you're probably getting sick of hearing about it. I'm getting tired of that word, but apparently that's why the Republicans lost the election, because of affordability. And look, everybody is feeling a little bit stressed out, no question about it. But I want to give you some of the numbers, because I'm just going to give you the hard data on what's really happening in this country with respect to affordability and inflation. So let me give you these numbers. They're in our hotline, by the way. And if you're not getting our daily hotline at Unleash Prosperity, you ought to get it. Just go to unleashprosperity.com and sign up and just hit the button for the hotline, and we will send it to you for free. It costs you nothing. It is a free service, a free email we send out with 5 or 6 bullet items every 5 mornings a week. And the people in the White House read it. The president reads it. The people in Congress read it. CEOs read it. So you should read it if you want to be the smartest person in the room. That's unleashprosperity.com hotline. And we will be very pleased to send it to you. And if you like it, you can read it 5 or 6 minutes every morning. If you like it, we'll just continue to send it to you. And if you don't like it, you can unsubscribe. But I think you will like it, and I think you'll learn a lot from it, with all due humility. So here are the numbers for inflation, and you make up your own mind about what is going on here. So let's look at Donald Trump's first term in office. So from 2001 through the end of in 2017, when he came into office, through the end of his first term, which was at the end of 2020, the average inflation rate over that period was 1.9%. 1.9. By the way, the Fed target is 2%. In other words, the Fed believes that the correct rate of, general increase in prices over time should be about 2%. That keeps up with productivity and so on. So 2% is what we're shooting for, and we were below that under Trump. We're at 1.9%, not 2%. So that's a pretty good record over 4 years. In the first term, Trump, what we'll call Trump 1.0, 1.9% rise in prices. Biden comes in. By the way, the month that Trump left office, you ready for this? The inflation rate was 1.6%. It was 1.6%. That's what Biden inherited. And if you look at the chart, I'm looking at it right now, it looks like a rocket ship erupting. So the inflation rate goes from 1.6% the month Trump leaves office to a year later, it's 9.1. Can you imagine screwing up things faster than that? From 1.6 to 9.1%. And it stayed high all the way till the end of 2023. And under 2024, it was, pretty moderate. It was about a little over 3%. And so over the 4 years that Biden was president, the inflation rate was about 5.1%. That's the average annual rate of inflation, 5.1%. Remember, it was 1.9% under Trump's first term. Now we get to Trump's second term. He has been in office for about 10 months now, and the inflation rate average over that first 10 months is 2.7%. Now that is above the rate we wanted at. We wanted it 2, so we're above the rate, but 2.7%, that's a lot lower than 5.1%, wouldn't you say? So what I'm telling you is if you're angry about inflation, if you're angry about what things cost, you have to basically say that Biden is the problem. Trump has made this point over and over again. Now I'm going to give you another statistic about the cost of things. 88.5%. We just calculated these numbers last night in anticipation of the show today. So these are fresh numbers. 88.5% of the rise in prices that you're facing when you go to the grocery store or when you buy an airline ticket or you pay your rent or all the things that you buy, you go to a movie theater, 88.5% of the increase in the price of those things was Biden, not Trump. Now, look, people are angry about food prices, steak prices, egg prices. I'm angry about it. Go to McDonald's. I can't believe what a Happy Meal costs these days. Or it used to be the $3 menu, then the $4 menu, then the $5 menu. The other day I went to McDonald's. It was $6. So yeah, things are rising in price and people are feeling financially squeezed. But this was a result. And incidentally, it's important to connect the dots between why it's happened. Why are prices up so much? And the answer is very simple. Big government. We spent and borrowed under Biden. By the way, Trump deserves some of the blame for this. I'm going to try to be fair-handed here. In Trump's last months in office, in his last year, he spent a crazy $1 trillion spending bill that passed out money to people. Biden comes in, spends $3.5 trillion above that. And this is simple economics. This is economics 100. This is something that people learn in high school, for goodness sakes, in grade school, in 7th grade. Inflation is too many dollars chasing too few goods. If you take helicopters and fly them over cities and dump $100 bills out the window and people start spending it, then, you're going to have inflation. We know that from every country in the world. So that is the so-called affordability crisis. Now remember, it's not so long ago that we used to say, the barometer for what's happening with prices is the gas price when you have to fill up your tank. If you're paying $4 a gallon, you're probably upset. If you're $5 a gallon, you're, hopping mad. If you're paying less than $3 a gallon, you're probably pretty happy about things. Well, guess what? Across the country, the average price of gasoline is now $2.95 a gallon. I mentioned that I was in the Midwest, a week and a half ago. It was in Nebraska. My God, it was $2.59 a gallon. So it's been a long time since we've seen a 2 handle on the gas price, but there we are in most cities in the United States. Now, I know a lot of our listeners are in New York, and I know we have a lot of listeners in Los Angeles where you're paying closer to $4 to $5 a gallon, but that's because of your crazy policies within your city. So I just want people to understand that's what's going on here. Now, the inflation rate with respect to healthcare is a big problem. Trump is going to have to deal with that big time. The last thing I want to bring up, because I will be taking your calls later in the show, and this is something I want to discuss at length throughout the next couple of hours that we're on. Why are young people so dour? If you look at the kids between the age of 18 and 35, the Generation Zers, they are forlorn. They're depressed. They're angry about things. They're feeling like they're being cheated. I mean, here's the generation that is entering the richest time in American history. And they're all, oh my God, the sky is falling. I can't afford anything. I can't get a job when there's 6 million jobs out there. When I graduated from college, we had an 18% mortgage interest rate, 11% inflation, and an 8% unemployment rate. So come on, man up, people. Now, the big problem with that generation, and I've talked about this before, but I want to bring it up again. Why are young people not getting married? Why are they not having children? The birth rates are declining very rapidly in a very troublesome way. The average age of marriage now for a young lady is 30, I believe it's 31. And the average year of getting married for the first time for a young man is 35. It used to be 10 years younger than that. So why aren't young people hitching up like they used to? Why aren't they having kids? Why aren't we starting families? This is a big socio-economic crisis in this country. I don't understand it because I'm 65 years old. If we have young people listening to this show, I would love to hear from you. We will be taking your calls later. I find this to be a crisis, folks. We have a crisis in family. People aren't getting married. They're not settling down. It's a big deal. It's bad for our country, and it's bad for our health, and it's bad for our economy. Whew. Okay, folks, we will be right back. We got a great show lined up, some really good guests coming on. We're going to talk about politics, economics, finance, and we will be right back. This is The More Money Show.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, there it is, folks. There's the More Money Hotline. We skipped that at the top of the hour, and that's the song that gets my juices flowing because we are about making more money. That's why we call it the More Money Show. And so thank you all so much for joining again this afternoon. So I want to get right into it with my next two guests. Two people are good friends, but two of the smartest people I know about politics and feeling the pulse of the American people. I'm talking about Tom Del Beccaro, who was the former Republican chair of the Republican Party in the state of California. Talk about tough jobs. That must have been a tough one, Tom, but you did a great job there. And then John McLaughlin, who's one of the top pollsters in the United States and certainly knows what's going on in New York. And boy, we're all kind of feeling very worried about what is happening in the city of New York and the state of New York with the election return. So, gentlemen, thanks for joining. Let's get right into it. Maybe I'll start with you, John. What is your just quick takeaway? It's been 2 weeks since the election. Republicans took a drubbing in New Jersey and New York. Why?
Well, they took the Trump voters stayed home. I mean, I've worked for the president I've advised him since 2011. So 2015, 2016. At one point in 2016, he said to me, all these polls have us losing to Hillary. How are we going to win? And it was the summer. And I said, he wasn't president then. He said, Mr. Trump. I said, what we're going to do is we're going to max out the anti-Hillary vote. We are then going to siphon up libertarians from Gary Johnson because they don't like Hillary either. And we will bring out new voters, these working class voters who didn't vote for Mitt Romney, who basically were living paycheck to paycheck, who in effect are looking for, he became their blue collar billionaire hero because he would fight for them, and you would have this Heartland coalition of Rust Belt, Sun Belt voters. Yeah. And they came out, and we brought them out.
It worked.
It worked, and we showed it worked in Nassau County this year, where Nassau County is bigger than 8 states. It's a huge county, population-wise. And Bruce Blakeman, the county executive out there, beat his Democratic opponent by 12 points in a county that's an 8-point Democrat county. And we went right down the ticket, Bruce, DA, town supervisors. They won everything down to the city level.
Why? But why would that county go so Republican and yet New York City, went so Democratic?
Well, first of all, when we polled when we did our polling, Hochul had a 61 disapprove, and Mondami had at the end in October had a 69 unfavorable. But Bruce Blakeman was running on the fact that he cut taxes for 4 years. Right. He hired 300 new police and became the safest county in America. And they cooperated with ICE, deported criminal illegals. He also banned transgender men from playing girls' sports on county properties. I mean, he stuck to the issues, and the voters responded. And what you need is, look at New Jersey, 600,000 Trump voters. We had almost 2 million votes there, about 2 million votes. We only lost by 6 points. In an odd year election, when the turnout goes down, if you'd gotten more Trump voters out than Harris voters, the Republican could have won. No, instead, what happened is, it was 5-4 Harris voters, and the Republican only got 1.4 million. So that's not enough to win.
Okay,
we need to get Trump voters out.
So I get that. So here's the problem, John, and Tom, I want to get to you in a minute, but John, we have we have a midterm coming up, which is going to be a lot more important than this off-year election. And are we going to face the same problem where the Trump voters don't turn out? Because as I look at it, going all the way back to, when Trump was first elected, Trump is a turnout machine for conservatives and libertarians and free market people and Republicans. He turns them out like nothing I've ever seen. But the pattern has been, John, that when they have the off-year elections, when he's not on the ticket, a lot of those voters stay home. And is that going to happen in 2026?
Well, it shouldn't happen, but I don't know who's running these other campaigns, but they need to figure out, they need to follow that example of what we just did for Bruce, where we went after, we knew we had a database of all the Trump voters who came out in 2024 that didn't vote in the odd years. We brought them out. You can do the same thing in the midterms. So whomever these strategists are in the other states, they better figure out how to get the Trump voters out, because we had 77 million people go vote. The midterm election, the turnout will be 112, 118 million. That's the last two midterms. Big drop from 156. You win by getting more of yours out than theirs out. And
okay, so let me turn that over now to Tom Del Beccaro. By the way, Tom's latest book, which is a really fantastic book called The Lessons of the American Civilization. I love that book, Tom. But what are your thoughts about this, Tom? I mean, you've followed politics, obviously on both coasts, on the East Coast and the West Coast. But I am worried that these Trump voters, won't turn out unless Trump is on the ticket.
Yeah, that is a very serious issue for Republicans. He has a very unique appeal and an ability for voters to be loyal to him, which Republicans are mistaken if they think it's just going to be handed off to anyone else. And so that's why I'm listening so intently right now to John on this particular issue. Midterms, of course, historically, the party in the White House is not as motivated as the party outside. But I also have studied the midterms for decades and find that the party in the White House tends not to run on an agenda. The party outside the White House approaches the midterms in two ways. It says, look at all the problems and elect us and we'll do these couple of things.
All right, Tom, hold that thought. We'll be right back, folks. This is the More Money Show.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is the More Money Show. Thanks so much for joining. This is the Red Apple Audio Network. Appreciate you joining on a pretty nice fall afternoon. So I'm talking to Tom Del Beccaro, who was the former head of the Republican Party in California, and John McLaughlin, one of the top pollsters in the country. Tom, I apologize. I had to cut you off. We had a hard break there. But I want to ask you about sort of the economics of what is going on. You have a lot of young people that are saying in the polls that they're distraught about the condition of the economy. They don't think they're the job opportunities there once were. They're worried about inflation, the cost of things. And yet, when you and I entered the workforce, things were a hell of a lot worse than they are today. What is going on with this younger generation?
Well, for one thing, they come out of a schooling system that is so negative towards capitalism, and then they post about it on their $1,200 phone while they're sipping their $7 coffee.
Right.
And America doesn't realize the level of things that are given to them for virtually nothing. So, look, as I talk about in my book, The Lessons of the American Civilization, very rich societies cast off children who don't appreciate what it is, and then compare it to the rest of the world. We see this Gallup poll that says 15 to 44-year-old women say 20% of them say they want to, or 40% say they want to leave the country. So part of this has to do with the education system, but at the end of the day, the government regulations on housing have pushed housing costs up so significantly that they are frustrated. And so there are underlying things going on, which is so difficult for Trump in a short period of time to undo. But at the end of the day, I want to harken back to the last discussion. Next year, Republicans have to have an agenda saying in the next 2 years, here is what we're going to do for the economy. They can't just go back. I expect the economy to be good next year. I expect the Republicans to have a good chance, but they can't sit on their laurels. They need an agenda, and then they have to do exactly what John said, which is contact Trump voters and give them a reason to vote.
So, John, that's a good entree to John. John McLaughlin, by the way, one of the top pollsters in the country, and certainly knows about what's going on and what happened with these most recent elections. So, John, just picking up on what Tom was talking about, Republicans are losing young voters, but not just Republicans. I mean, the country is losing young voters. They feel forlorn. They're kind of depressed. They're not getting married. They're not moving into a house. They're not, they don't seem to have the love for America that most of us do. What the hell is going on there?
Well, Tom's right. They need an agenda. And we had an agenda last year with President Trump when we worked out the platform. Newt Gingrich did a lot of work on it. Vince Yates, who's President Trump's domestic advisor in the White House, was brilliant with it. And the president himself developed that agenda. Now, Trump won't be on the ballot. He said, but he's talked about having a convention, which I've encouraged would be great to have a convention, a midterm election convention. But there's no sense having a convention unless you have a platform. And he needs to get the Senate and the House Republicans to agree on a platform that's his platform and take up things like your Committee to Unleash Prosperity, Steve, put out the fact that these younger voters aren't able to buy homes until they come into their 40s. And a lot of that, by the way, the socialism creep is when you don't own things and all of a sudden you start taking things from other people. So the biggest obstacle to them owning a home is the interest rate on the mortgage, because compared to Trump's first term, it's double because the interest rates are higher. And I think what you're starting to see where the market flattened out this week, two things became apparent. One is we could lose the midterms. And the second thing is they're talking about the Fed not lowering interest rates anymore. In our last poll, we asked at the end of October, we asked if they should fire Jerome Powell. And 59% of all voters to 24 said they should. That's
wait, hold on, John. How many people even know who Jerome Powell is?
He had a 33-30 favorable, unfavorable. So 2/3 of the American public voters know who he is. And they favor Trump firing him to lower interest rates because right now he's the guy putting the sand in the engine on the tax cuts. Yeah. So Trump needs to have an opponent, needs to run a campaign. I think the president ought to run a campaign to fire this guy sooner than May when his term comes up, because he is purposely undermining the Trump recovery. And you've talked about it. A lot of our friends, but you guys are, you're smart, you're intellectual, you're playing by the rules. Our opponents don't play by the rules. They are basically influencing the Fed not to lower interest rates, to hurt the recovery, to hurt us to win the midterm elections. Just like this shutdown that the Democrats engineered, they didn't care how much pain they put on the country. It's to hurt Trump and the Republicans in the midterms. We need to play hard and have an agenda, like Tom says.
So here's what is sort of perplexing to me, Tom, and I'll throw this over to you as well, John, but I want Tom to go first on this one, is the economy is good. We have a good economy right now. We have low inflation. It's 2.8, 2.9%. It's not exactly where we want it to be, but that's pretty low. We've got, the low gas prices, $2.89 a gallon in most places in the United States. We got a record booming stock market. The job market is slowing down a little bit, but there's still a lot of jobs out there. We've got this investment flowing into the country. In other words, this is a good economy. It's not a bad economy. And yet people are not voting as if and then also in the polls, they're not feeling the love.
Yeah. Well, look, keep in mind, in this, what I call the divided era, half the half the country hears a economy or hears about an economy that doesn't exist to them, because that's the way CNN and NBC and CBS report it. And so we live in this dichotomy, which is problematic. Also, a lot of we are adjusting the economy. We're getting off government hiring as the government spending as pushing the economy and causing inflation. Now we're privatizing it, as Scott has talked about. But they focus on things which CNN and half the country focuses on, because that's what they're delivered. A year from now, it'll be different. 6 months from now, CNN won't be able to deny some of these things. But the delay in putting the tax cut and the like, that delay of 6 months, look, they could have passed that tax bill on February 15th if they really wanted to. That delay has hurt them politically. So there is this delay in the good things that are coming, but nevertheless, they have to do the constant campaign. Keep this in mind. The Democrat voter is far more loyal, in my view, as someone who has to get out the vote for campaigns like I tried to on Prop 50. The Democrat voter is more loyal to coming out on a constant basis. The Republican voter isn't as loyal. That's true. We saw that last
Well, that's because, Tom, that's because they're the party of government and we're not the party of government. So we just want to get on with our lives. We want the government to stay out. For them, it's like their livelihoods. They have to have the Democrats win. But John, what do you think about that?
I think Tom's right. We got to work harder and have a campaign. And I mean, Trump's job approval peaked on Election Day last year, and his favorability and his popular vote, which was perfect for the campaign, but we had a campaign driving that. Right now, as Tom says, we got 4 out of 10 voters. They pay attention to the conservative media. 4 out of 10 pay attention to the liberal media. The other ones in the middle you got to get to, but you need a campaign to get to them. And Trump, we did it in the campaign because we would hold the rallies. He's in Washington. He's running a government. He's building up a great 300-day record of success, but we're not amplifying it because we don't have a campaign that is going. We have to run over the liberal legacy media. Fortunately, here you're on ABC Radio, thanks to John Catsimatidis. He's got free speech operating, and we can get out the facts. But they don't have that on CNN. They don't have that on MSNBC.
Well,
and we have to fight through it.
Even this, station, which I've been so privileged for the last 5 years to have the More Money show, and we're on throughout the country, but in New York, our ABC affiliate, we know the demographics of the listenership of this show. It's older people. We're not, we'd like to attract more young people to the show, but mostly it's people in the 50s, 60s, 70s who are listening to this. So how do we, I don't know. I'm just perplexed about how we reach
Steve,
these young
people. You mentioned something very important, that young people get their news on social media in their hand. They don't get it on television or radio like the older generation. So you have to do digital campaigning, and you have to engage them. I want the Republicans once and for all to stop running campaigns from Washington and going out to the states and holding events there like a convention that can't be avoided. In order to get in the news, you got to make news.
Okay.
And so they have to
Got it. So I want to ask you, we got literally 30 seconds left. I'm going to put you both on the spot because you're two of the smartest political people I know. Who will be the Democratic nominee for president in 2028? And Tom, I'll start with you and then I'll go with John.
I think if I make a bet today, it would be Gavin Newsom, but that's just the way it is.
Yep. I think you're probably right. What do you think, John?
In our national polls that we have, Newsom's leading now against Kamala Harris by a little bit, but I would watch for somebody else to come through because the demographics on their side favor another more Obama-like, more even more left of center radical than Newsom. So you could have somebody new that
they can't help themselves. They just cannot help themselves, right? I mean, maybe it's going to be
on your show right now. Kamala's not running for president. I'm going to say it right now. She
I wish she were.
Enter it.
All right, guys, we got to wrap it up. Thank you so much. John McLaughlin, best pollster in the country. Tom Del Becerro, one of the top political commentators in the country. This is the More Money Show, and we will be right back.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We're back, folks. This is the More Money Show. Thanks so much for carving some time out of your weekend to listen to the show. We are Red Apple Audio Network. We're all over the country. By the way, our previous discussion, we were talking about who will be the Democratic nominee for president in the next election. And I'm going to go with Fetterman. I just love Fetterman lately. I love what he's saying, and he's giving a spanking to some of his more liberal Democratic colleagues. Boy, that would be interesting to have Fetterman at the top of the ticket. But my next guest is Jay Jackson, who he's backed by popular demand. Every time I have him on, I've had him on the show about 4 or 5 times. I get so many comments, Jay, from our listeners. I want to hear more about this. How does it work? Jay is one of the top financial advisors in the country. He's with Abacus Global Management. And he can help you. As you know, I just turned 65 myself. So I'm so, interested personally in what Jay has to say. How do I prepare for the next 20? Hopefully I'll live to 90. Who knows how long I'll live? Mm-hmm. But how do I deal with the longevity issues? What do I do about my life insurance? All those issues, Jay, our listeners are absolutely, very, very tuned to what you're talking about. They want the answer. So thanks for joining.
Great to be on. Hi, Steve, and to all of your listeners, and thanks for their comments and bringing me back yet again.
So let's talk. First of all, tell us about Abacus.
Sure. Abacus Global Management. We are an asset management firm that prioritizes and utilizes individual mortality and lifespan data to build customized solutions for people's financial plan.
So someone like myself, who I'm 65, so you could help me figure out, okay, what do I do about my life insurance? What do I do about all the,
that's right,
conglomerating all my, accounts and all that stuff, right?
That's exactly right. I mean, the number one fear of everyone, regardless of your net worth, is running out of money. While you're in, while you're in your retirement. And for us, it makes complete common sense and logic that you would want to know and plan better to how long you're going to be in retirement, right? It changes your estate plan concept.
Because, hold on, let me just interrupt you for a second. Because I don't have a long longevity in my genes. So maybe you can kind of say, well, you're based on your genetics and all that, you're probably going to live to, 78. I'm just picking out a number. So therefore you can help me plan based on the information that you have about me, about how, because I also don't want to die with it. I want to live well, while I can.
Yeah. Well, it comes down to not just living well, but living well in what you do, right? A lot of us want to form legacy. We want to donate. We want to do these things, yet we hesitate to do so. Maybe we want to give more to our church. Maybe we want to give more to our different charities that we're a part of. Mm-hmm. But we're saying, hey, if I take this away from me now, what's going to be my impact later? And that's the right assumption, honestly, because most people don't realize that 50% of their retirement could potentially be spent on the last 40 years of their life just in medical costs, right? Yeah. And what we want people to realize is that if you address this on the front end, you could actually start to take on a healthier lifestyle, even if you're in your 70s or 80s, and limit those last 4 years to maybe 2 years where most of that expense is, right? Like, you think about Alzheimer's, you think about some of these things. Neurological care and memory care can be $12,000, $15,000 a month for a loved one. Yeah. Who plans for that, right? But as you start to now thinking about that financial planning and how that incorporates some of these things, I think it's super important.
It seems to me that also, I'm talking to Jay Jackson with Abacus Global Management, that you can, I remember was it about a month or two ago, you and I had lunch and you were just, my eyes just opened like a saucer when I heard about the kind of services that can be provided by a financial firm. I'd never even heard about this before, but it seems to make sense once you reach or near that retirement age.
It is. And you know what's going to happen? This is going to fundamentally shift how everyone looks at financial planning, right? Yeah. President Trump just made permanent the estate tax exemption. That's huge. And so now it's not all about tax. Now it's about living, right? And living with purpose.
Yes.
I like to think that this is a lot more about education too, right? Like this is just one kind of interesting way to think about things, but we just came off of Halloween, right? Halloween, what does everyone dress as? Super scary characters, whether Freddy Krueger, Jason,
right.
scary clowns,
right.
all these things that we're like, man, they scare me because they could potentially kill me. However, what's fascinating is 52% of all the media coverage out there is about homicides. Well, homicides represent 1% of all the mortalities last year.
Right.
However, heart disease and cancer represented 56% and only generated 7% of the media coverage. Now, I didn't see anybody at Halloween dressed like a cancer cell, right? like that is scary.
That's what you should be afraid of. Yeah.
That's what you should be afraid of. And that's how you educate yourself to say, I need to start paying attention to these things because the media hasn't quite caught up with this because it's not sensational, right? But it feels boring. It feels like, oh, who's going to talk about heart disease again? But if you're looking at this in your own custom solution, if you're looking at this according to some of the things that you can change about that today, one of the things you and I spoke about last month, remember, if you're going to go for a walk, put a weight in each hand. Right. Yeah. Those things matter and they have a big impact, right? Small adjustments make big impacts. And it also happens with your financial planning.
So it's an amazing thing. It's almost like you're a life coach, not just a financial manager, for people
sometimes it feels that way, but yeah, life coach is the most important time of their lives, right? Yeah. Like you've worked so hard and the odds were stacked against you to even get to 65. And now you're there and you're saying, hey, I have a 50% probability of making to 90 now that I've gotten this far. And what do I need to do to ensure?
And by the way, you can tell me, sorry to interrupt, but you can actually look at the data of each of your clients and you could say, look, here's the probability you're going to live to 84 or 85 or 80. And
that's
then
exactly what we do.
Right.
Yeah, I would say that's exactly what we do. But beyond that, we can build these customized solutions while we medically underwrite you personally. And then we give you all the outcomes of people who look just like you and all across the United States. And what was their outcome, right? Some lived longer, some lived shorter. Right. This is the kind of data, though, that we also sell to pension funds. Right. It was a big election issue on coming back to, hey, we're paying people on Social Security who are no longer alive. We track every mortality that happens in the United States. We can have a big impact on Social Security and Medicare through those audits. We're already helping the largest pension funds around the country.
Well,
helping them better establish how this works.
It's almost like you're giving everybody insider information that can maximize their wealth and kind of beat the insurance companies and so on. I love it. It's Abacus Global Management. Jay, it's a fantastic product, and people should go to find that out. And can you come on in another couple of weeks and we'll finish this discussion?
I will. You bet. I'll chat with you again in 2 weeks. Thank you, Steve, as always.
Okay, have a great weekend, folks. This is The More Money Show.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome, folks. This is the second hour of the More Money Show. Thank you so much for carving some time out of your weekend. I hope you're having a great weekend, by the way. I think a lot of people are starting their Christmas shopping. Have you noticed, by the way, that, they started talking about Christmas like in early October. It used to be, after Thanksgiving, and then it was after then it was after Halloween. Now it seems like it's like the beginning of October. It's a little too early for me, and I love Christmas, but come on, let's get past Thanksgiving, which is one of my favorite holidays, and then start talking about Christmas. We got so much. We're live. We're in color. This is the More Money Show. I'm economist Steve Moore. I wanted to make sure everyone goes to our website, unleashprosperity.com, and signs up for our daily hotline so you can know what's going on with politics and the economy and finance. So proud to be able to follow Larry Kudlow, the great Larry Kudlow, on his show. So when you think about it, WABC has 5 straight hours of politics and economics live and in color. I don't think there's any other station in the country that does that on the weekends. So thank you for joining. We like to have fun with you. We like to make it fun, informative, educational. Great show lined up. And I will be taking your calls, folks, because I love to hear from you I learn a lot from when you call in and tell me what you think is going on with the country, what you think is going right and what's going wrong. By the way, I think most things in the country are going right now. And that's because we have a president who is just solving one problem after another. And so our More Money hotline, which we'll be taking your calls, probably close to the bottom of the hour. So don't call in yet, but it's 1-800-848-9222. That's 1-800-848-WABC, 1-800-848-9222. So call in, maybe about the bottom of the hour. That's when we'll start taking your calls. We always get so many smart people who are telling me things I don't know, and it's very informative for me. This is freedom of speech radio. So if you don't agree with me, and, that includes people like my wife, I want to hear from you. I want to hear if you've got intelligent comments. Be nice. But I like it when people say, hey, Steve Moore, I think you're full of it. I think you got it wrong here. I think you've got the wrong analysis. And sometimes people call in and you know what I say? You're probably right. Maybe I had it wrong. So I like that. I like to hear from people who are, in disagreement with me. I'm going to just say this, and we'll get to our first guest in a few minutes, but just to start off the second hour, I don't understand why people are so angry about the economy. I think the economy is in very good shape. You know, we're looking at Dow 50,000. Let me say that again. Dow 50,000. When I started, it was Dow 1,000. Now we're at Dow 50,000. So, you know, we've lived through over the last 40 years, the greatest period of wealth creation in American history. People are getting rich. If you want to get rich in this country, invest in the stock market, invest in American companies. We have the best companies in the world. One other quick issue I wanted to bring up before we take our first break. And this is something I brought up last week, but I want to finish our discussion about this, is there is a proposal to raise the deposit insurance in banks. You know, right now, it started, you know, in the Great Depression when there was the run on banks. We had a policy where we started to have federal deposit insurance so that if you put your money in a bank, you were guaranteed that you would get your money back. And I believe right now that your account is guaranteed up to $250,000. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the number. They keep adjusting it. The last time I checked, it was 250,000. So, that's to make sure there's not run on the banks. And if banks run into trouble, like we saw with Silicon Valley Bank a couple of years ago and so on, that people don't rush to the bank and try to take all their money out. That's what happened in the Great Depression. Everybody withdrew all their money from the banking system and the whole market crashed. So, you know, I think deposit insurance probably makes sense up to a certain point. And then above that point, you know, you want to be paying attention to what the bank is doing as a depositor to make sure you don't lose your money so that everybody has some skin in the game. So there is a proposal to raise that limit from $250,000 to $10 million. To $10 million. Now, I'm sorry, who has $10 million? Well, let's see, you've got, you know, to put in a savings account. Well, you've got probably Elon Musk and you got Bill Gates and you got LeBron James and you got Taylor Swift and, you know, the millionaires, the multi-millionaires and billionaires. But most Americans have, even in their whole lifetime, don't have $25 million. So why are we, this is basically a bailout for very, very rich people. I don't understand the logic of it. I think it's a dumb policy. I think we should oppose it. And by the way, you know, some of my friends on the other, you know, who are Republicans say that this is necessary because they want to help, you know, the small community banks. And there's nobody who wants to see small community banks succeed as much as I do. I just don't think this is the right thing to do. I think it's putting the taxpayer on the line. Do not forget what happened in 2008 in this country. It's amazing what short memories we have when the entire economy collapsed and we had to have massive bailouts for the big banks of the, you know, it cost our economy several $1 trillion in bailouts. I don't want to go that way anymore. I don't want to. I want, if banks misbehave, they should pay the price, not the American taxpayer. That is my opinion. So let's keep the FDIC insurance limit where it is and maybe adjust it for inflation year, but not from 250,000 to 10 million. I think that is simply not fair to the average, you know, family that has nowhere near that kind of wealth. So we will be right back. We're going to talk a lot about politics. We're going to talk about the economy, and we are going to take your calls at the bottom of the hour. This is the More Money Show. That More Money hotline, 1-800-848-9222. So be ready.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We are back, folks. This is Steve Moore. This is the More Money Show. And I always say I'm not the smartest radio talk show host, but I get some of the smartest guests on the show. And that certainly applies to our next guest, Grover Norquist. You all know Grover. He is the heartbeat of the free market conservative movement in Washington. He and I have known each other for, 35 years. We have worked together on tax policy and all sorts of other free market causes. It is Americans for Tax Reform is the group that he runs. So, Grover, thanks so much for joining.
Having me.
Okay. I want to just do kind of potpourri with you. I've got about 5 or 6 issues I want to talk with you about and get your kind of quick comments on it because there's just so much going on right now. And I'm going to start with this story that we had on our hotline the other day. I want your reaction to it. But there is this love affair going on right now between the health insurance companies and the Democrats and the health insurance companies. I've come to hate the health insurance companies. I think we spend way too much money on health insurance in this country, and I think they're ripping us off. And so here's the story, and I want your reaction to it. We had this in the hotline the other day. That almost 3 out of every $4 that the health insurance companies give in political contributions are now going to the Democrats, and of course the Democrats are the ones who were the ones who are holding out to fatten the wallets of the health insurance companies because most of the money that was in the bill that Democrats wanted to pass was not to benefit families, but about 70% of that money would have gone right into the coffers of the health insurance companies, which doesn't make people healthier. What are your thoughts about this?
Well, it's understandable. The insurance industry opposed Bill Clinton with Hillary Care. And the Democrats decided these people, this is what beat us, the insurance companies. Mm-hmm. And so they said, what would it take to get the insurance companies to switch teams?
Right.
This is exactly how Britain got government-run care.
Yeah.
When they were discussing that, they said all the dentists, all the doctors are against the national health, the idea of a national health service, the government monopoly on internists, doctors, and the bureaucrats. And when one of the left-wingers organizing this was asked, how are you going to overcome the opposition of the doctors? He said, we will stuff their mouths with gold. Mm-hmm. We will stuff their mouths with gold. And this is what the Democrats have done. They have made it very profitable to the insurance companies. And the insurance companies evidently kick back a great deal of money as this circles back to the Democrats. And insurance companies should be doing what they were looking to do down in Florida, where Governor in Florida did
DeSantis
tort reform. DeSantis did tort reform, and the insurance companies, not health, but general insurance companies, saved so much money that they dropped prices and gave people a rebate. And insurance companies should be out leading the fight against the abuses of tort law and saying, if you got rid of this abuse, we could charge you $100 less because it wouldn't be abused. And this is what it costs us now. They could be the friends of consumers instead of their enemies.
Great point. And so, you're right, because trial lawyers and health insurers are probably the two biggest advocates of Democratic candidates because they get handouts from government programs. So we're also joined, by the way, by another close friend and ally in the free market movement, Peter Roth, who works with me at Unleash Prosperity as our political expert. So, Peter, I'm going to toss this next.
And used to work with Grover at American.
I know. It's a symbiotic relationship here.
Grover's point is well taken, and there's another thing the insurance company should have embraced, and that was a proposal by a guy who was a friend and hero to all of us, former House Majority leader Dick Armey from Texas, who proposed many years ago changing federal laws so that the insurance companies could offer you lower premiums if you agreed to sign away your right to sue for pain and suffering. You know, all the extraneous stuff that the lawyers add on to get rich, and that they would have to pay for actual damages. So hospital bills, somebody got hurt, lost income, damage to a vehicle. They'd have to cover all that. But the $3 million because, somebody felt bad, all that was out the window. And that's part of what drives up the costs. And unfortunately, the insurance companies oppose this for some bizarre reasons.
Who knows? Okay, I'm going to ask you for the next question. As I said, this is potpourri. We're just talking about a whole range of issues here. So I'll start with Grover on this one next. Okay, so your good buddy, Grover Zoran Mamdani, said after his election, I will quote, "We will prove that there is no problem too large for government to solve and no concern too small for it to care about." Now, this is exactly the opposite of what Bill Clinton said many years ago, that their big government is over. Ronald Reagan said that a government big enough to give you everything you've got is big enough to take everything you've got. What the hell is going on? Is the Democratic Party a socialist party today?
Well, it's actually Mussolini who says everything within the state, nothing outside the state. So Mussolini and the new mayor have the same outlook. There's nothing that shouldn't be decided by the government. Nothing's too small for the government to do. Nothing's too big for the government to do.
Right.
And as Mussolini said, nothing's outside of it. Everything's inside the state, nothing outside.
Can I just interrupt you for 1 second? Because the thing that's so scary about this, maybe I'll turn to Peter for this, is that every time who are the people who've said this in the past? Let's see, Lenin, Castro, the Nazis, they all said, "Oh, we're going to take care of you. It's going to be wonderful." Mussolini, all of these people made these same claims, and it wasn't just bad for the economy. They killed people, Peter.
That's the point, is that there's no problem too big for government to solve, because if you kill enough people, then people will stop complaining and there will stop being a problem. They'll just accept it. And that's really, unfortunately, what that means. And whether you're talking about the persecution of people based upon their religion or ethnicity or sexual preference in Nazi Germany, or their desire to actually just be people of faith in communist China under Mao and following in the Cultural Revolution, if the government has all the guns, they can come along and kill everybody. And there are, therefore, no problems. This is why the American founders, people like Jefferson and Adams and Washington and Franklin, put such importance on freedom of expression, because it is the right to conscience, the right to thought, the right to say, hey, my taxes are too high and I don't like it, is a basic human right that comes to us from our Creator, as Jefferson would have said. And to be able to express that is an extension of that right. But that runs up against dictators, whether they're dictators who are communist or socialist, whether they're Hitler or Stalin or Mao. And so what you're going to start to see, I think, is people trying to protest against anybody that's dissenting against what Mamdani wants to do in New York, or his opposite number in Seattle, Katie Wilson, who interestingly is a native-born New Yorker, and is now the new socialist mayor of Seattle.
So what makes me very nervous about this, Grover, is it's not just about our money. It's about our civil liberties. It's about our basic freedoms. And I'm very worried about some of these poll results that I've seen recently, that, is well over a third of Democrats think that if it's okay to be violent with people who you disagree with. If they won't get in line, then it's okay to be violent. And that's scary.
I'm reminded of George Walker Bush. After 9/11, somebody referred to something as that fighting against the terrorists as a crusade, and in the Arab world, nobody was offended because the original Crusades were attacking everybody. They said, he's an American. He doesn't know what the Crusades are. He doesn't mean anything by it. And kids that go to high school these days and college,
they don't know.
They don't know that socialism, National Socialism, Soviet Socialism, all of these things are linked together, and they don't know the history of it. They just don't. So yes, they're glomming onto a word which somebody said was a cute word to play with, but at some point we need to do our job in educating them better. We need more kids in charter schools and home schools and private schools, and even maybe some public schools trying to catch up and actually teach history.
So this next one, we'll do this one and then we'll take a break and be back. But before we take our break, I want to ask you about this one. We now have companies like NVIDIA, Microsoft, Google, Apple that are worth more than entire countries in the world. And our tech companies have been so dominant. They are really the fruits of a free enterprise system. Grover, I believe that we as free market conservatives have to have an alliance with the great, and Trump has talked about this, our great technology companies that are taking over the world. We've dominated. We need to continue to dominate just like in the internet age, we have to dominate in the robotics age, the AI age, and we should have a friendly relationship with these companies that employ so many people, made so many of us rich.
Absolutely. And there's some people who think they're conservatives who think that they should use the power of the state to play smash mouth with some of these great companies because when Obama and Biden were in charge, threatening to destroy their companies, they gave in on some of the censorship stuff. Although Meta, remember, Zuckerberg, before Trump won the second election, he said, they came and threatened my baby. They came and threatened my company. They threatened me. They were going to destroy everything I built if I didn't do this stuff for them. And I did, and I'm sorry. It was a mistake. I'm not doing it again. These companies have been mauled by the thugs in the Democratic Party. And the censorship, which was real, which was, we don't let certain people get heard on the internet and so on. That was all driven by the government. Again, you don't blame when somebody's holding a hostage in a bank. The bank robbers are holding the hostage. You don't blame the hostage for calling out, please pay them the money. Okay, you blame the guy with a gun, with the criminal there, not the hostage. And these companies were held hostage, and they're now free in many cases to be much better at this stuff. And they've moved towards the Republican Party on these issues. And
the conservative movement. And they now realize, I think, Peter, we've only got a minute left before our break. Yeah. They now realize, I think, these companies, Google and Apple, not completely, there's still work to be done in Silicon Valley, but we need to make an alliance between big tech, the conservative movement, and free markets. This is what makes America great. And I think they're starting to realize, hey, wait a minute. Our enemies are the people who want to regulate us and tax us to death. And
there ought to be a natural alliance, but the problem is that the tech companies are located in places where liberalism flourishes.
I know.
And what the executives of the tech companies need to do is move to places where freedom is dominant.
That's true too.
And then what will happen is the workforce that they have available to them will have a much different attitude. You talked with Grover a moment ago about people who say it's all right to be violent against people you disagree with. Well, the government schools teach kids that they don't have to be exposed to things that make them uncomfortable, that trigger them.
It's crazy. All right, we got to take a quick break, but we'll be right back with Peter Roth with Unleash Prosperity and Grover Norquist, the president of Americans for Tax Reform. Stick with us, folks. This is The More Money Show.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is the More Money Show. Hope you're having a wonderful weekend. I have two of the smartest guys I know about the economy and politics. Peter Roth, who works with me at Unleash Prosperity, is our political guru, and the great Grover Norquist, who runs Americans for Tax Reform. Okay, guys, again, we're going to go speed round. By the way, folks, I will be taking your calls in a few minutes. We have 2 open lines, 1-800-848-9222 if you want to weigh in. This is Freedom of Speech Radio. Okay, speed round. Let's start with you. I thought of you when I saw this story that we covered in the hotline, Grover. This is right up your alley. The IRS will no longer be doing your taxes for you. When the Biden people came up with this idea, I was horrified by it because I don't trust the IRS. But what do you make of this story?
The Democrats and the left have wanted to do this for several decades. Americans for Tax Reform. 30
we'll make it so easy for you, right?
Well, other countries do it where the government sends you a bill, and if you want to contest it, you can. Good luck. What if the federal government overcharged you $500 or $200? Are you going to complain? Are you going to go to court to do that and hire a lawyer for $5,000? Absolutely not. It was a bad idea. It was never legal for the IRS to build that model. They weren't given the money to do that. They literally embezzled the money themselves and said, this is what we want to do, and we're going to spend taxpayer dollars to have the government do your taxes for you. Good luck.
So, Grover, one of the things, because you are the expert on the IRS and the tax, I mean, what really scared me when Biden was president was the hiring of tens of thousands of more IRS agents, as if these are good people. This is a sinister force. These IRS agents, they can take your property, they can garnish your wages, they can literally come to your house with a gun in their hand. What's with Democrats? They've fallen in love with the IRS.
Well, there's a reason. Over 99% of the money the IRS union sends to people goes to Democrats and Democrat structures.
Yeah.
So
amazing.
It is a cycling of money from taxpayers to the unions and then to the Democrats. So yes.
Not to interrupt, but there's one other thing you've left out, guys. And in the Constitution guarantees the right to the presumption of innocence everywhere but in tax court.
That's so true.
In tax court, you have to prove you didn't do what they accused you of doing. They don't have to prove you did it. You have to prove you didn't.
Yeah, there's a presumption of guilt. I mean, I know that firsthand, Peter, because, when they said I owed them $50,000 and my tax attorney just said, well, just pay it, because even though you don't owe it, you just should pay it because it's going to cost you way more than that to take on the IRS in court. You'll probably lose because the IRS wins in court. So we've got to rein in the IRS agree. Okay, here's another one, Peter. I'll start with you on this one. There are 70,000 climate change delegates right now in Brazil telling us how to stop the warming of the planet. Are they going to do that?
Probably not, although it's interesting, 70,000 delegates all carrying signs in English. I saw some of the footage, and I quite don't understand how a place where the official language is Portuguese, the signs are all suddenly in English.
How did they get there, by the way?
And they can't recover the carbon footprint that they all left getting down there with anything they negotiated. But I did see an interesting posit the other night on one of the streaming channels that the energy industry actually uses these climate summits as cover to negotiate energy agreements with fossil fuels. And if that's what they're really doing, I hope so, because fossil fuels are the only thing that are going to power this planet on to prosperity, unless we get nuclear back up and running. Wind, solar, none of that stuff is enough to support the life-saving, job-creating, food-growing, hospital-running electric power that has made it possible for people to routinely live into their 90s in prosperity and health.
Yeah, I mean, these guys are eating lobster and drinking champagne and telling us all we have to use less energy, Grover.
Yes, and frankly, the information coming out suggests that the ice at the north has not disappeared every 5 years as they promised us, and in fact is doing just fine. It has been from the beginning an effort to expand state power. Our friend Vice President Gore came and spoke to the Wednesday meeting, and I asked him. I said, "You used to say global cooling. You have to do 10 things, use less energy. Then it was global warming. It was the same 10 things that solved global warming that would solve global cooling. Then it was climate change, same 10 things, ride bicycles, use less energy. Are there any of these 10 things we shouldn't be forced to do, regardless of whether there's if there's no climate change, would you still insist on these 10 things being done? Before I finished that sentence, you said, yes, they should all be done. Right. They chose their list of things we should do, and then they try and fill in the blanks as to why. And that's why it doesn't matter whether it's cooling or warming or standing still. We still should do these things.
Okay, last one for you guys. This is, and we just got about 3 or 4 minutes left, but we are now closing in. This is so incredible. We're closing in on Dow 50,000. Grover, when I think you and I came to Washington, we were at Dow 1,000. We're now at Dow 50,000. This is the greatest period of wealth creation in the history of civilization. And what a shame it is. You and I have advocated for personal accounts for Social Security for 30 or 40 years. Think of how rich every American would be. I get so sick and tired of Democrats saying, oh, well, only the top 25% of people have money in the stock market. That's because they wouldn't let young people and they wouldn't let people put their Social Security money in the stock market. So when are we going to do this, Grover? Because it is a shame. We would have a nation of millionaire pensioners if we had done this and let people by their choice put 12% of their paycheck into a personal account that's invested in the stock market.
Social Security makes everybody poorer over time.
It does. Yes.
And the wealth gap that people talk about is because lower income people have their money taken from them and put into the government, which actually doesn't invest it. They just give it to your grandmother the next week. You're right. If people instead had a 401k, IRA, and the government said, you have to put 12% in because we don't want you to show up at 65 and say, I forgot to save for my retirement, you would have $1 million in the bank and you could live off of the interest and so on of what you were creating. It would make us richer. There are other countries, Chile, for instance, which do that.
Well,
I mean,
Peter,
the big lie here at this point is if we'd had private accounts when I entered the workforce in, let's say 1984, we'd had so many people with so much money that we'd be able to pay for the people who showed up and said, hi, I'm sorry, I forgot to save.
Hey, no, it's true. I mean, look, our study shows, Peter, that if even someone who made their minimum wage their whole life, and there are not too many people who fall in that category, but even if you just made the lowest possible salary every month you worked, you would still you'd be getting a benefit 2 to 3 times higher, and you could you could leave $1 million for your kids. I mean, what a missed opportunity.
And you find all this stuff out in the Unleashed Prosperity Hotline. How do you get the Unleashed Prosperity Hotline, Steve, which is free to everyone who subscribes and always will be free? But how do you get it?
There you go. Folks, go to unleashedprosperity.com and click on Hotline and you can get it for free. Well, Grover and Peter, great stuff. Thanks so much. We have to do this again soon. Appreciate you guys coming on. Now let me turn to some of our callers before we have to take a break. I'm taking your calls for the rest of the show, folks, so we need more people to call in. We have 1 or 2 open lines, 1-800-848-9222. Talk about any of this stuff that we've talked about for the last hour. I believe Mike has been waiting patiently on the line. Are you there, Mike?
I am here. Hello?
Yes, you're on.
All right, Steve. I know the president is trying to improve the economy from the effects of the big, beautiful bill to replacing Fed governors to lower the interest rates to now potentially giving tariff rebates to citizens. Aren't those all going to contribute to inflation by suddenly improving the economy, which is what he's trying to avoid with this word affordability that the media and the Democrats are using? Will they be butting heads with each other in counterproductive ideas? How do we achieve one without throwing a bone to the other is my question.
Okay,
Thank you
great
for
question.
your show. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mike. Good call. Great question. Thank you so much for calling in. By the way, we have one or two open lines at 1-800-848-9222 if you want to join the conversation. So Mike, great points. Let me take some of those things on that you said. First of all, I agree with you. The tariffs probably do lead to higher inflation at the margin. And that's why I'm not a big fan of tariffs. And I know our callers sometimes get angry at me because, if everybody has different opinions on this, but I do believe, look, if 50% tariff on coffee beans that come in from, say, Brazil or Colombia, and then guess what? The cost of coffee, when you go to Starbucks or go to the grocery store and buy a bag of coffee beans, you're going to pay more for it. And the studies show that. So yes, you're right that tariffs probably do contribute somewhat to the inflation, although inflation overall is still pretty low in this country right now. Now, but I want to address something you just said because, by the way, I do not like the idea of sending everybody a $2,000 check. You're exactly right. That would just be inflationary. It'd be a wonderful thing if we could just print money and make people rich. That doesn't work. But the idea that growing the economy is going to make inflation worse is something that the Fed believes in, and they're completely wrong. And I know many of you who've listened to the show over the years know I've said this 100 times, but if the economy produces more apples, as Arthur Laffer would say, the price of apples goes down. When you produce more goods and services and you put more things on the shelves, then the supply of things goes up and their price goes down. I think a lot of the people at the Fed have that exactly backwards. It is not true. We want to produce more, and that means we're going to be more productive, and we are going to pay lower prices, not higher prices. I think we can squeeze in one more caller before the break. Is Sal on with us?
My call.
Yes.
Steve, I would just like to make a statement. You said that one of the reasons why couples don't have that many children is because they can't afford a home. I would like to also say that another reason is because they bought into the lie of global warming.
Yes.
And I would
yes.
Also,
yes.
What do you think about that?
You're right. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but keep going. You're on a streak here.
Yeah, I would also like to say, what do you think about us getting rid of abolishing the IRS? It's an unconstitutional organization that takes a lot of money that we hardly earn.
Oh, I love this call. Sal, thanks for calling in. Both great comments. First of all, on the climate change, you're exactly right. We've had one or two generations now that have grown up with this nonsense that the world's coming to an end, that we're all going to, the earth is going to become one great fireball and we're all going to melt because of global warming and so on. By the way, that every study shows that there has been a slight warming of the temperature over the last 100 years. We don't know why that's happening. The temperature of the earth has been changing for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years. And to think that the government somehow is going to change the temperature of the planet is lunatic. It's a lunatic idea. And it's all about just having the government take more control of the economy. But my point is, if you actually believe this, if you actually believe that we have 20 years to fix this or we're all going to die, why would you want to bring children into the world? Why wouldn't you just be so depressed about the future that you're facing as a young person? Well, for the young people listening, it's all a lie. Things are going to be fine. Of course, we want to protect the environment. The way to do that is better technology by becoming a richer country. As we become richer, we spend more money on environmental improvement. Most young people don't realize that the amount of air pollution, water pollution is far, far less today than it's ever been in America. We have the cleanest water and the cleanest air we've had in 100 years. Most people think just the opposite because they've been indoctrinated by our schools with exactly the wrong message. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, our last break, and when we come back, the next 12, 15 minutes is all for your calls. 1-800-848-9222. This is the More Money Show. So far, we've had great callers. So if you're smart, if you got something intelligent to say, we want to hear from you. 1-800-848-WABC is the call-in number, and this is the More Money Show.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network. More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We are back, folks. This is the More Money Show. Hope you're having a great weekend. Okay, we've been taking your calls, and we've got a bunch of people lined up. But one of the themes of this week's show, if you've been listening for the last hour and a half, is what's wrong with young people? Why are people between the ages of 18 and 35 so dour? Why are they down on the free market system? Why are they all voting for socialists? And so one of my colleagues at Unleash Prosperity, who helps me produce this show, our producer, Zach Laba. How old are you, Zach?
I am 27.
So he's right in that strike zone. So he understands that generation. I don't. I'm 65. So Zach, you've worked with us for the last year and a half. You work for FreedomWorks. You do a lot of outreach to young people. What do we need to do? First of all, why are so many young people seduced by this idea of socialism? And in your opinion, what do we need to do to make young people understand that socialism is an economic dead end?
Well, first, as to why they're so enraptured by it, it's miseducation for sure. Right up from elementary through to college, but especially in college. Absolutely, they've been indoctrinated.
Did you face that yourself?
I ignored it, but yes, I saw it very clearly. Yeah, right. And it's not just Stalin, Leninism, blah blah blah. It's the soft socialism. It's the government is supposed to do this for you. Government's supposed to help you with that.
So it's like the government is a security blanket for you.
Bingo, security blanket. Right. That's certainly the way they look at it. And then
do people learn about the abuses of big government?
They think it's totalitarianism. They think they separate it off into this idea that that's just what bad governments do. Okay. But the good governments, they take care of people. And the flip side of it is, whether true or not, and I, having been around so many smart people in my life, realize that it's exaggerated.
Smart people?
You are, Steve, you are. One of the things that, it's housing prices. It's they look at the inflation and they feel a sense of hopelessness. And at this point, it's not necessarily socialism, and it doesn't have to be Mamdani's. They're looking out for anyone who will be the answer to those questions of how do we get this more affordable.
What do we do about it?
One thing, I think it's education.
Yeah. What do you mean?
I think we bring them into these organizations. Like ours, like Unleash Prosperity. We show them the benefits that capitalism.
School choice?
School choice is a huge one. On the lower levels, that'll help families that are struggling right now. But
because the public schools are run by the teachers' unions and they're socialists.
100%.
Yeah.
And the teachers are the biggest indoctrinators of government does this. It's here to help. It makes you feel good and fluffy and happy inside. But the other part of it is I think, you just need to, take them seriously and address the questions. Yeah. Sometimes it feels
show them how the free market can solve.
Show them how the free market solves these issues. Finger wagging is great, but it doesn't always help. So it's how does the free market help you, and why does these big government solutions? Why are government-run grocery stores bad? Right. That's how I would approach it.
Okay, Zach, your job at Unleash Prosperity is to bring these young people in over to our side, to the free market virtue side of the equation. Okay, so our next caller, I think we have Linda with us. Linda, you still there?
Yes.
Hi, Linda.
Steve. I just want to say, I want to tell your wife that she has a brilliant husband.
Go ahead.
Okay. You were the only one who mentioned it. I saw it, people saw it, but nobody talks about it on the radio. They say the opposite.
Yeah.
They just lowered the interest rate. The Fed lowered the interest rate, and they lowered it, and the short term went down, but the one they wanted, the long term, went up.
I know.
It didn't go down. It went up, just the opposite. Yeah. That's what they were looking for, the conservatives, right, all of us, and everyone wanted it to go down for different reasons, but it went up. And actually, I want to ask you, is there a way that they could separate that? Because a lot of people want higher rates for short term and lower for long term to buy a house or something, right? Yeah. Well, can they separate that?
Yeah. So Linda, great call. Great point. It's something that people need to be educated about. And even my friend Donald Trump, who I love and adore and I think he's done amazing things for our country, I don't think he fully gets this, that the Fed does not control the mortgage interest rate. They don't control the 10-year Treasury rate. All they control is this short-term overnight rate that almost no one borrows at. So I do believe there's way too much attention and infatuation with the idea. All the Fed has to do is lower interest rates and we create all these jobs. It's nonsense, folks. It is nonsense. The Fed's job is to keep inflation low. And if you keep inflation low, guess what will happen to mortgage interest rates? They will fall. Linda is right. When the last time.
You are brilliant.
Yeah, well, look, thank you. That's very nice of you to say, but it's not brilliance. It's just common sense. The Fed, it doesn't have an impact. Now, the question would be why, when the Fed lowers the short-term rate, would the long-term interest rate, like the mortgage rate, go up? And the answer to that is because when they pump more money into the economy through the lower interest rates, people think inflation is going to come. And if you think inflation is going to go 5 or 6%, you're not going to borrow, you're not going to lend money at 3%, right? So that's the answer. The best way to keep the interest rates low is to get government spending under control, because that's what's causing so much inflation. Okay. We got time for a couple more quick questions. Thank you, Linda. Great call. Do we have Steve in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, it's Caesar. It's Caesar, Steve. How are you?
Oh, Caesar. Sorry. Great. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, listen, on this 50-year mortgage.
Yes.
I've been hearing nothing but negative on the media and nothing explaining how the other side of this argument could be beneficial. I'm a real estate broker in 3 states, and I've been a real estate investor for years.
Okay? So what is your opinion? What is your opinion, Caesar, of this? Because I'm on the fence on this one. You're on the front lines of the real estate market. Are you in favor or against the 50-year mortgage?
I favor it, and let me tell you why.
Why? Okay.
If you're an investor, and that'll help a younger person with their debt to income ratio or any way to get into the asset. That's the main thing, to acquire the asset. If you don't acquire the asset, what do you have? Now, how many people go to term on a 50-year mortgage? If you have the asset, then you have multiple possibilities from there. You could acquire.
Yeah, okay, so hold on. I understand what you're saying, but I'm going to challenge you on that one because, again, I haven't made my mind up on this. That's why I like to take calls like yours. So, you know, the thing is, if you have a 50-year mortgage, you're not the equity, and you have the equity, which is your ownership. You don't get that much equity because you don't even own it until 50 years later. So you're really reducing people's equity in the house, not increasing it.
Well, but you also have a possibility of appreciation. What do you have
That's true.
You don't have the asset? What do you have when you don't have the asset? You have nothing.
You have nothing.
You have zero.
Yeah. So you're saying this allows people to get into the house, to have some partial ownership, and then build it up over time because they can't afford to make the payments.
Well, there's different options from there. Yeah. It allows them to get in. They could refinance out of it. I've taken hard money loans in the past where I've acquired the asset and then paid it off and had a lot of equity and appreciation down the road. It gets you into the home, and nobody goes to a 50-year term. So I'm so tired of that argument.
All right, Caesar, great call. Thank you very much. You've enlightened me. I think you've got a good point that you take possession of the house. You're going to have a lower down payment, obviously, because you're stretching out the terms of the loan. So that makes sense. I'm still on the fence on it, though. I think we have time for one more call, and I think Henry from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, how you doing? This is Henry.
Good. Thanks for calling. You're our last caller. We've only got 2.5 minutes left, so go quickly, Henry. Thanks for calling.
I'm so glad. So here's the deal. I love your show. I follow everything you say.
Thank you.
I'm a conservative. I'm a Trump voter. And you asked, and this is why I was so glad to call today. I've been listening since 1 o'clock. You know, I am a young person. I'm 31. I've done everything right. Went to Lehigh.
What's wrong with your generation? Why are they all socialists? Why are all your colleagues, why do they believe in socialism and big government and high taxes?
Because I've done everything right, and I still can't afford a house in Allentown. Because in the last 10 years, it's gone up $100,000 to buy a house in a nice area. And then when it gets gentrified, the people from New Jersey buy the houses because they make more money. So I'm just saying I've done everything right. I'm conservative, and I agree with you. Trump needs an agenda because how is that helping me? I'm glad he's done immigration, all these great things.
Yeah.
But to me, I still can't buy a house.
Okay, Henry, I'm going to ask you one last question. We really only have about 80 seconds left.
Sure.
But are you in Pennsylvania?
Yes.
Okay, so here is my question for you. I just think Fetterman is so interesting, Senator Fetterman. You know, he kind of campaigned as a liberal, but now he's criticizing the Democrats. What do you think of him?
You know, to be honest, I voted Republican my whole life.
Yeah.
I think he is good for us. I hate to say awesome. He's got a good head on his shoulders, and I give him a lot of respect for speaking out. Yeah, definitely.
So I agree with you. Thanks for calling in, by the way, Henry. Great comments. Go ahead.
Thanks for helping me move forward.
Anytime, my friend. I hope you're getting our Unleash Prosperity hotline. Go to unleashprosperity.com and you get it for free. Yeah. All right, folks. Great show today. Great callers, as always. I said, I just learned so much to listen to you about what is going on in America. I'm here to tell you, I think things are going great with the economy. I'm super bullish for 2026. The tax cut kicks in. We're going to see lower gas prices. We're going to see a lot of investment in this country. We're going to see, I think the unemployment rate come down. The jobs are coming aplenty because Trump is bringing in hundreds of billions of dollars of new investment. Yes, there are some companies that are laying off workers. That gets the headlines, but there are all sorts of entrepreneurial new companies that are amazing. I think some of you have heard my story about that I joined the board of a company called Lightspeed, which is, we build houses with robots. We're going to cut the cost of building a house by 40%. So that means the cost of buying a house will come down. So this is an economy that's humming right now. I don't understand why people feel like, affordability. Look, the average family has $1,200 more today after inflation and income than they did when Trump came into office starting in January. So this idea that, we can't afford things. Some things are expensive. I know that, but a lot of things are falling in price. Hey guys, have a great weekend. We will be back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Have a great weekend. And, let's celebrate freedom. Let's celebrate free enterprise, and let's celebrate that this is America, the land of opportunity.
Thanks for listening to More Money with Steve Moore. You can hear More Money with Steve Moore Saturday afternoons at 1. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder,
what the heck is going on here?
If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy.
Download and subscribe
at BeBullish.com.